Hello everybody and welcome back to Wayfarer Ways. This video is going to be a bit of a special one because in a few days I'm going to be celebrating my 13th year of sobriety. And since this sober birthday coincides with the beginning of my open-ended travel journey, and since sobriety gave me back travel, I figured this is a good time to talk about what it's like to navigate in this world as a sober person. You know, how do you make friends? How do you stay social? How do you enjoy the world while still staying true to yourself as a sober person? So after years of traveling without drinking, I've learned a few things and I figured I'd share that with you today. But before we get into everything, I want to take you guys with me on something I've fallen in love with in my sobriety, and that's riding a motorbike in Southeast Asia. So instead of me just sitting here and talking to the camera the whole time, we're gonna go for a little ride around town. I filmed this earlier and I'm just gonna talk to you while we drive. So let's get on the bike, take a look around Kampot, and dive into what it's really like to travel this world as a sober person. So when I first got sober, travel was one of those things that I really wanted to bring back into my life, because for years, alcohol had completely taken that away from me. I wasn't traveling, I wasn't going anywhere, I wasn't seeing anything. My world had just become so small that all that mattered was drinking. But there were two things that happened when the possibility of travel came back into my life after getting sober. On the one hand, I was nervous because I didn't know what it would be like to go out into the world without drinking. Even though I felt I had a good, solid sobriety within myself, it still felt scary to leave the safety of my routine and my recovery bubble. But at the same time, I was really excited. I was excited to finally go out into the world as a sober person on my own and see what this new life could actually look like, because this is what I've been working towards for years. And the first real window I got was in February 2016 when I was 3 years sober. A job had ended and some time had opened up and I'd saved a bit of money, and I just thought, why not? 3 years is a good number, let's test this thing out. So I ended up taking a 5-month backpacking trip through Southeast Asia. And even though I was in the backpacking hostel world, I stayed sober for the entire time and I had this amazing experience. And that trip just changed my life. And honestly, that trip is one of the big reasons I'm here in Southeast Asia now. And since then, I've traveled around Asia. I even lived in Vietnam for a time. And of course, I've traveled around the United States and I've seen the challenges and the rewards that come from traveling as a sober person. So let me talk to you about that. And I think a good place to start would be the challenges. So let's start there. When you first start thinking about traveling sober, one of the biggest questions or fears that you may have is the social life, because when you go out into the world, you don't want to be isolated. You want to travel, you want to meet people, you want stories, not just of the places you saw, but the dinners, the conversations, and the unexpected friendships. But these experiences can revolve around drinking, so the question becomes, how the hell do you do that without alcohol? So what I learned right away when I was first backpacking through Southeast Asia was that honesty is the simplest tool that you have. People would offer beers and people would talk about going out, and I would just say, oh, no thanks, I don't drink. And that was it. I never had anyone give me a hard time. Most people just went, oh, okay, and the conversation moved on. And every now and then with certain people, I'd go a little deeper. I'd say, yeah, I'm a recovering alcoholic. Alcohol was ruining my life, but I'm on the other side of that now. And the response was always respectful. I mean, a lot of times they start telling me about their uncle or their dad or someone they loved who struggled with drinking. And you start to see how common this is all around the world. I mean, people get it. And weirdly enough, many of them were actually happy for me. Now, even as a sober traveler, you'll still get invitations to dinners and bars and hangouts. And I go to bars with people. I wanted to push myself a little to see how I handle these environments. So I'd hang out for an hour or so, talk, laugh and meet people and enjoy the atmosphere. And then I'd just leave. I'd say, all right, guys, I'm heading out. And nobody cared. They were like, cool, see you back at the hostel. And that was something important to understand. Most people aren't hardcore partiers. I know it feels like a lot of people may be, but it's just not true. A lot of travelers might have a beer or two, but they're really there for the same reasons that you are, for the culture, the food, the nature, the human experience. And those are the people you naturally gravitate towards. For instance, on that first trip, I met this girl named Sonia from Spain, and I'm still friends with her today. And she wasn't into drinking. We just clicked, we traveled around Chiang Mai a little bit together. We talked, we explored. It was all good. And when you travel, you meet a whole variety of people. So you'll also meet people who don't drink anymore. People who want to explore and drink coffee and have just good conversations over food and hiking and all that type of stuff. They become your people. You're not pulled towards the crazy party crowd anymore. Not because you're better than anyone, but because you're simply not that person anymore. And one of the best things that happens that you didn't realize was gonna happen when you started this trip, for instance, was that with every social moment that you navigate sober, your confidence grows. You start realizing, damn, I'm actually doing this. I'm sober, I'm out in the world, and I'm having a good time. And you start feeling proud of yourself. You start believing in yourself. So yes, a sober social life on the road is absolutely possible. You get to have conversations with people over coffee, you share meals together, you walk around new cities with people from all over the world, and as you're doing that, you think, I'm sober, and I'm living the life I always hoped I could. So far, I've been talking about the backpacker world, hostels and meeting people and all that, but the truth is that most travelers don't end up in a hostel. They usually end up in a hotel room or an Airbnb or their own apartment for a month or two. And when you're sober, staying in a hotel or your own apartment is an experience because you're really on your own. And that's when loneliness can hit. And it can be real because, again, in hostels, meeting people is easy. In a hotel room or an apartment, you really have to make it happen. And the other thing is that when you're in, like, let's say you're in a hotel, there's also that downtime, that quiet and that space to be with your own thoughts. And, sometimes that's cool. But for a sober person, that could be a tough place to be too. For instance, during my 5-month backpacking trip, some loneliness did hit me about 2 months in. And even though I stayed in touch with my sponsor and some of my friends back home, I realized I needed that face-to-face contact. So I found a local Alcoholics Anonymous meeting group. And I went to a meeting and it really helped a lot. And I also met another fellow traveler there. And we ended up spending the day together just talking about sobriety and travel and life. And I met up with him a few more times after that. And even there was a moment when I really needed something and he came through for me. I gave him a call and he really helped me out. So that was awesome. And again, actually, when I was living long-term in Hanoi, I had my own apartment in a building full of locals, but after a few months there, I needed that connection, that even to deal with that loneliness. So I found a local AA meeting and that helped me a lot there too. So the thing is that AA is everywhere. And this is how I dealt with it, with some of the loneliness as a sober traveler. But I know that AA is not for everyone. I know it's not everyone's path, and that's fine. So if you're a person who is not into AA, there are other ways you can deal with loneliness or find connections. You can go to cafes, you can go to gyms, there's co-working spaces, there's cooking and language classes, there's walking groups, running groups, meetup groups, and talking to locals. And that's true for everyone. Everyone who's a sober traveler, AA or not, these are ways that you can meet people and make connections. So the thing is this, loneliness, it can come with travels, sober or not. It's just that being sober means that your connections take a bit more effort to make happen. But the thing is that those relationships, and they end up being sometimes some of the most meaningful ones that you make. So in saying all that, the other part of how I live as a sober traveler, it also has to do with my routines and lifestyle that keeps me grounded. And that's what I kind of want to get into next with you. When you travel sober, the day-to-day rhythm of your life starts to matter a lot, because without the social pull of bars or the nightlife, your routines become the anchor that keeps you grounded. And this isn't just for long-term travelers. Anyone moving through a new place can benefit from holding onto a personal structure. And the idea is simple. Before you go traveling, know yourself. Know what habits, routines, and hobbies keep you steady as a sober person. Then, on the road, carry those routines with you as much as possible. So if you like to get up early, exercise, read, write, cook, explore nature, make time for all of that. But don't be afraid to expand your practices. Discover cafes, visit local bookstores, hike new trails. explore historical sites, or wander through neighborhoods on a motorbike. Do whatever your thing is, but be open to explore new things also. For me, cafes are a big part of my travel life. I love going and finding new cool cafes to just hang out at, to read, or just to watch life around me. And as you can see in this video, in Southeast Asia, driving motorbikes is another huge outlet that I have for myself because it's fun, but also for me it's therapeutic and it keeps me balanced. And the key is balance. Hold on to the routines that anchor you, but stay flexible enough to adapt to your environment. That's how it is. So keep open to discovery, exploration, but let your routines carry you through. And don't forget too that this kind of lifestyle that you're creating also creates space for you to meet other people, because you never know who you'll run into in a cafe or on a hike or in a class or just exploring. So, it strengthens your social experience along the way. And ultimately, what is awesome is that when your routines, hobbies, and curiosity work together, they do help support your sobriety while letting you fully enjoy the adventure and the human connection and the discovery that travel brings. So in saying all that, all these routines and lifestyle choices, it makes your travel more awesome, without a doubt, and it keeps you grounded as a sober traveler. But even with all that structure, there is one truth that you cannot escape from while moving through this world, and that is that alcohol is everywhere. So let's talk about that next. One thing that happens when you get sober, and anyone who's been through this will know what I'm talking about, is that suddenly you'll start noticing that alcohol is everywhere, and you think, man, has it always been like this? And yeah, it has, it's just you weren't seeing it before. And alcohol isn't just everywhere back home, it's everywhere around the world too. Most of the places you travel through have their own drinking culture and their own relationship with alcohol. So if you go to places like Thailand and Vietnam and Cambodia or wherever, it's all still there. And you walk by the bars and you see the people partying and the music's loud and it's spilling out into the streets. And even if you go to a convenience store, the guy who's helping you out, right behind him there's a wall of liquor just looking at you. So yeah, you're gonna see it everywhere, but there is a way to deal with it. And the way isn't to tense up and fight it, because fighting it just gives it power. The way through is actually the opposite. You just stop resisting it. You let yourself notice it without attaching anything to it. You look at it, you acknowledge it, and you maybe even laugh about it a little bit, and then you just keep on moving on. Because you're not scared of it, you're just aware of it. And after a while, it just fades into the background and it becomes just another part of the scenery. And look, there will be moments when you're around it more than you prefer, and that's okay, because sometimes you'll just end up in situations where alcohol is just part of the scene. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to avoid every single place where alcohol is, because then you're just limiting your entire travel experience. And when you let alcohol dictate where you can or can't go, you're just giving it power again. So instead, you choose your own environments on your own terms in the ways that you can handle the situation best for yourself. For example, I was at this Cambodian birthday dinner party the other day, and I was sitting at a whole table of guys just drinking beer. And there was me with my water. And I was totally fine because I had a great night. I ended up talking to this Cambodian guy for nearly 2 hours about life, and it was really cool and interesting. And the alcohol around me, it didn't take anything away from the moment. It was just part of the background, nothing more. So what this is really about is about acceptance. Accepting the world as it is, which is a world where alcohol is just everywhere. And it's woven into the culture of pretty much everywhere you will travel through. And it's also about acceptance that you live in that world, but as a sober person. So what do? You don't fight it. You don't hide from it. You just move through it, function in it, and just enjoy your life. Because once you stop resisting its presence of alcohol, it just loses its weight. And it just becomes another part of the landscape. And what do? You just keep on going, man. So let's now talk about what we get out of traveling as a sober person. What do we get out of this? What do we gain? One of the biggest wins of traveling sober is just how much more of a day you actually get. When you're not drinking, you wake up early, you're clear, and you're ready to go. You might go get some breakfast, enjoy the local food, grab a coffee, and you step into the full day without feeling foggy or hungover because you're dragging yourself through the mornings from last night's drinking and party. Instead, you're actually out there exploring and discovering and fully present to the experience that you wish to have. And because you're not leaning on the nightlife or the drinking, the partying to feel like you're doing something, I think you actually find more of the place that you're at. Because when you're out there and you're, say, out there early in the morning or you have the full day to kind of explore, you get to find all those like cool little quiet corners or like the early morning markets or the little neighborhoods you never would have reached if you were sleeping in or trying to recover from the day. So you trade hangovers for actual real experiences, and I think that changes everything. Another major win is money, because even in countries where alcohol is cheap, it does add up fast, and drinking always leads to extra spending. When you're sober, you're not burning through your budget, you're not making all those impulse purchases while you're drunk, and then at the end of the night or the next morning, you look in your wallet and you're like, where's all my money? Where did it all go? So instead, your money goes into the things that actually stay with you, the experiences that you're there for the food, the culture, all your day trips, the museums, and the real moments that you came here for. So yeah, money is a major one that I think pretty much everybody can relate to on that one. I think also you may have better relationships with people when you're traveling sober. Because when you're making connections that aren't built around bars, I think they kind of go deeper. You meet people and conversations happen over meals, over coffees, or on walks and out exploring. And you may meet fewer people this way, sure, than in a bar. But I think the ones that you do meet, those connections tend to mean more down the line. That's just my experience, at least. And also, I think presence is something we need to talk about, because traveling sober lets you feel a place in a way that I don't think drinking allows you to. If your intention is to really understand a culture or tune into the rhythm of a city, I think sobriety opens that door, because you're just more aware, you're more receptive, you're more in tuned. So because you're more connected to what's actually happening around you, I think you get a deeper resonance of what the place is actually about. I think also you just stay safer in general, because you're not at bars and wandering around at night drunk, or in these situations that can evolve into something that's kind of dicey, a little sketchy, Instead, you stay more to the daytime hours. And because you stay more to the daytime hours, you just basically keep yourself out of the situations where things can go kind of sideways fast, Now, I know that not everybody who travels in a sober way is a recovering alcoholic or addict, but if you're someone who has battled alcoholism or addiction, traveling sober can really hit you deeply, because it shows you something that you might have doubted for years, and that is that you can go out into the world. You can go into new places. You can go into new situations and into these new lives completely sober and still just have an awesome, meaningful experience. Because you can really just stand there and say to yourself, wow, I can do this. I can travel. I can grow. I can have fun, and I can live my life without alcohol. And I can do it completely sober. And once you see that, the whole world really does open up for you. So after all these years of traveling as a sober person, I learned that it really is a big adventure, and it's been way more fun than I thought it would be. And on top of that, I get to kind of experience the world in a different way than I used to before I got sober, which I'm really grateful for. So listen, if you're in the early stages and you're not really quite sure if this is possible for you, I get it. I understand. I was where you were once before. But just know that it is possible for you to go out there and have a meaningful, true experience in life traveling as a sober person. And I've met many people out here who are doing it the same way themselves. So I'm not anybody special. I'm just somebody who used to drink a lot and who eventually got sober and who eventually went back out there to reclaim their lives. And if I can do it, then you sure as hell can do it yourself. So know that this is possible for you. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you very much for watching this video and thank you for visiting my channel. If you'd like to help support the channel, there are ways you can do so down below. You can like, you can subscribe, and there are other ways to do so in the description area. And if you'd like to watch the next video, then you can click the link that's above my head somewhere. That'll take you right there. But in the meantime, you take care and I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.